Let's talk about closures. Closures are nothing but self-contained block of code that can be passed around. You can either pass closure as an input to a function, or it can be outputted from a function. Let's start with a simple closure. So this is how you declare a closure. Let it call it print closure, and the way you can define it as in two curly braces, right? And we are defining a closure without any parameters or without any return type. It's a simple print. We will write just say hello world, the ubiquitous example in the code world. This is how you define print closure. Okay, so this is just a block of code and you can call it like anywhere you want. So if I want to just call here, I'm just going to call here and this should work. It should print hello world, so it's printing hello world here, right? And if you write any other thing, like let's say hello world 2 or 1, it should work. Okay, now let's use this closure as a one of the input parameters to a function. So let's say I'm going to define a function, say func. You can call any function. Let's say name is process, and to this function you can pass any integer parameters. Just to give an example, it could be anything. I'm just giving an example. And then let's say another input parameters, and then the third parameter I want it to be a closure, and closure we have to declare a signature. In this particular, the closure does not have any inputs parameters, so we leave it as a blank brackets, and the return type, which is described after the horizontal arrow, we'll say it's void because it's not returning anything. Okay, and inside this function you can do anything you want, like you can do var c or var d is equal to a plus b, and if you want to invoke the closure, you just call it as c. It is the name of the function and pass empty bracket. So at this point the closure will be executed. And this closure, I want to external parameter, I don't want to have a mandatory, so I'm going to just make it underscore, right? So here where you defined a function. Now when you're calling the function, the way you do it is, let me create unnamed parameters so that's easy to call this function. And let's say now if I want to call this function, the way you do it is process. You can pass any variables for the first two, a and b, and third one, please note, I need to pass a closure, and I'm going to pass this closure. So I can just take this an example here and paste it here, right? So now if I execute this, see there was a bug. Let's see now. Okay, so this works, right? So hello world 1, it is printing now. All right, now instead of naming the closure here, you can pass the entire block. Let's do that. So I can just copy this, and that is usually what is normally gets used. I can just pass this and paste it like this. Okay, and say if this works. Should still work. I can change this just to show you if it's working. Yeah, it works, right? So directly you can pass a block of code as an input to a function. Okay, now the way Swift has simplified is if you are passing closure as last parameters, you don't have to put brackets here. What you can do is you can complete this function and call it like this. Okay, so that is just save you some errors that you might make to extend the bracket, and this should also work. Okay, so it works. So even if I parses hello world 3, it should work. Okay, now let's imagine that your closure has an input argument. So to do that, the syntax is inside bracket you describe the input parameter, and the output you describe as here in this case output is void, and the input is nothing, and then you specify in, and then you specify the function body here. That's the typical syntax of the closure. Okay, so this is exactly same as even if you had eliminated this. So right now you can execute this function and see it should still work. Okay, now let's say if I want to pass a parameter. So the way to do that is, let's say my parameter is name, which is of the type string, right? And this will print like let's say name using string interpolation, right? And I'm going to post as this one unnamed parameter. And now you can, if you, let's say if you want to print this, so let's say I can call this function here now and say Bob. I need to change that also over here. Okay, so here I'm going to say this one. I need to change my function signature also, right? Okay, so let me write it. Okay, all right, so I have declared a closure which takes one input as an argument, which is the type string. Return type is still void, and it just calls the function here. And then now I need to pass a parameter, let's say Bob. So, and this is how I'm calling the function. So the last parameter of the function is a closure, and I'm just executing like this. So right now if I print, I should print hello Bob. Let's see if that works. Hello Bob, right? So this is how you describe a function with a parameter. You could also describe a return parameter. Let's say it is of the type another string, right? And you could return, say name capitalized, right? And here you can say E is equal to this, and then you can say print E, right? So here also we can say string. So here this is a closure which returns a string and takes string as an input. Okay, so let's see now if I run what happens. So it's printing me Bob, which is the first letter is capital. So if I let's me write this as small Bob, then now it will become more clear. Or let me write some other name, Angela. As you can see, it's capitalizing the first name. So this is how you describe a closure which can take inputs and also output, and you can pass it around to other function, right? That's how we use closures.